Hola, buenos días. Les saludo en castellano solo porque he estudiado en Madrid para el Erasmus. Les deseo también que tenga esta experiencia. Estudié también Derecho y les deseo todo lo mejor para los estudios y que les interesa la presentación. And I'm going to switch in English now. So thank you very much, Professor Alfonso Martínez Echevarria, for the invitation. Who we are? We are the business side. You saw maybe, if you saw some of the logos in the first slide, you will see there was Emisores Españoles. Emisores Españoles is a miembro, it's the member of European issuers. We represent companies listed on the stock exchange, and our objective is to make sure there is an environment that can help companies grow on the capital markets. What does it mean? It means that we need a regulatory framework that can help them access to finance and also have the proper corporate governance environment so that they can support our European economy. So that's a little bit about what we do, how we do it. We do it from Brussels. We monitor the legislation, the regulation, the directives. I heard yesterday one of the speakers saying that the speed of directives and regulation is like they just live and die, at a speed that sometimes we cannot follow. So that's, maybe why now we have to come here to just provide you also, further insight on how it works, and I hope it will help. Companies indeed need to be prepared to what's coming next. You will be, hopefully, and I hope maybe involved in, all this process because it takes a lot of time. They have not waited to start engaging, as you saw from the presentation, but the journey is just starting. We need to make sure as enterprise, our company, to maintain entrepreneurship at the heart of the business development. And innovation. It's important to keep it and not to forget that sometimes there is need for differentiation as a driver in this context. So we make sure in voicing our views that there is the right balance, the right proportion of approach is taken by the institution on the regulatory side of it. A little bit more about the presentation. So I'm going to, start with the non-financial information disclosure, and FRD to CSRD, the origin of the framework, and also the issuer's perspective and what's next, and a little bit more focus on the topic of today, which is non-financial information and how to disclose it. Talking about the standards of EFRAG, the elaboration of the standard, and what is coming next. In 2014, the EC adopted the Non-Financial Information Directive. The directive was applicable to large public interested companies with more than 500 employees, covering approximately 11,700 large companies and groups across the EU, including listed companies, banks, insurance companies, and other companies designated by national authorities as public interest entities. The information to be disclosed was related to environmental matters, social matters, treatment of employees, respect of human rights, anti-corruption and bribery, diversity on company boards in terms of age, gender, educational and professional background. In June 2017, the Commission published guidelines to help companies disclose environmental and social information. And these guidelines are not mandatory. Companies may decide to use international, European, or national guidelines according to their own characteristic or business environment. In 2019, the Commission published guidelines on reporting climate-related information, which in practice consist of a new supplement to the existing guidelines on non-financial reporting, which still remains applicable. Non-financial information. In 2019, the Commission drove the agenda in the political agreement on the Green Deal to renew the NFRD to ensure different goals. First, investors have to have access to adequate non-financial information to take into account the sustainability-related risk, the opportunities, and also the impacts. Also to ensure civil society organizations, trade unions, and others have access to adequate non-financial information and reduce the unnecessary burden on business relating to non-financial reporting. In 2021, the EC adopted the reviewed proposal Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which extended the scope to all large listed companies and all companies listed on regulated market, except the micro ones, request the audit assurance of the reported information, introduce detailed reporting requirements, including on intangibles and forward-looking information, and requirement to report according to mandatory EU sustainability reporting standards. Request companies also to digitally tag the reported information so it can be machine readable and feed into the European Single Access Point, which is a data center which is envisaged by the Capital Markets Union Action Plan. And the outcome of this proposal, means that it will encompass 50,000 companies instead of the 11,000 today. What are issuers' concerns? From the perspective of the issuers across the EU, I mean, there is a common agreement that it's good to have a kind of harmonization of standards for environmental, social, and governance matters and information also to promote transparent and also sustainable investments so that it will drive further data to the investors. Nevertheless, we have some points from the proposal of the Commission which we think problematic. The scope of the directive itself, the voluntary opt-in regime for SMEs, also the phasing approach for first-time preparers is important, and also the inclusion of non-EU companies operating in the EU. Let's not forget that the EU is looking at the scope of companies that are operating in the EU. Then the principle of financial and non-financial materiality needs to be further clarified. There should be some flexibility somewhere, for instance, in the location of the sustainability reporting information, not necessarily in the management report, as it is currently in the proposal. The flexibility also for some reporting standards to be used, but in essence, looking at the international development of the IISB, there should be definitely coherence and convergence, so to avoid companies have different sets actually of reporting standards. Avoid also to digitalize some of qualitative information which could be per se still at this stage, and you have understood from other presentation a little bit immature. Avoid also some automatism towards reasonable assurance for audit, and also important to have a clear framework for delegated act, limiting the power of the Commission so that we ensure there is a coherent framework in order to avoid a little bit what happened with the taxonomy overall. So where are we now at this moment? At this moment, the legislative process is still in progress for the adoption of the CSRD. The proposal of the Commission passed to the co-legislator, European Parliament and Council, and which have also expressed their views in March and February, respectively. On the Parliament side, the leading committee, which is called the Legal Affairs Jury Committee, has voted on a final report, also approved in plenary, which foresees that the exempting SMEs from the scope, limiting exemption for subsidiaries from the reporting obligation once sustainability information is included in the parent companies, prohibiting statutory auditors to carry out sustainability reporting assurance for the same client, inclusion sustainability report in management report, and adoption of general standard will be June 2023. The Council also adopted its general approach on several points. They limited reporting for SMEs with simplified regime, exemption for subsidiaries is maintained, distinct auditors possible, more clarity for independent services providers and support competitive market, the location of sustainability report in the management report, and alignment with international standards with an adoption in October 2022. So the match is still open between the different negotiating institutions until the final version is expected, and probably in June 2022, as it's the end of the French presidency. Once the compromise is then adopted by the Council, the Parliament and the Commission will adopt the directive and then will publish it in the official journal. The Member States will have 18 months to the transposition and then the entry into force. So it it's moving quite fast. As for the application, the proposal being discussed for the moment foresees that companies already under the scope will need to start report with the new rules in January 2024, whereas other large companies, which are called the first-time preparers, will need to report in January 2025, and SMEs in January 2026. But how will companies actually report under this new CSRD? The proposal of the Commission foresees that it should adopt delegated acts to provide a sustainability reporting standard. The general standard then will be adopted in October 2022, the second batch in October 2023. This timeline has been fiercely criticized by all parties, and the Commission itself is now changing its mind and might think delaying it by 6 months. So in order to create these technical standards of reporting, the Commission now has mandated EFRAG to do so. EFRAG is the European standard setter. In April 2021, CSRD was designated EFRAG as the technical advisor developing the draft EU sustainability reporting standards. In May, the Commission mandated them to launch the technical work to develop the standard, and also they started to work on their governance reform because there was no non-financial reporting pillar within EFRAG at that moment. In January 2022, EFRAG integrated this new sustainability reporting pillar into this structure and created the board and the technical expert group. So EFRAG has created the project task force on European sustainability reporting standard and tasked the elaboration of the draft standards into 10 clusters, reflecting around different areas: general info, governance, cross-cutting issues, climate-related and social, etc. It has published the pre-exposure draft standards, finalized in March 2022, and created also in November 2021 several expert groups with specific expertise and experience on sustainability matters to provide inputs also to the PTF ESRS. Once the creation of the sustainability reporting pillar was set up, the board was created and is tasked now with the responsibility to adopt the draft standards that will be originated by this technical group in order to deliver them actually to the Commission, which will start another consultation period. So a little bit to understand where we stand in the process, the next steps are the following. So right now, the standards have been published. They are available for consultation on the website of EFRAG. With a questionnaire to be fulfilled in. The consultation period lasts for 100 days until the 8th of August. And then the board will review the answers, consolidate the results, elaborate the standards to be delivered, for which it has sole responsibility. It will then pass the work to the Commission, which is supposed to provide insight for November 2022 and consolidate the answer, and then we'll start another consultation and discussions with other stakeholders and institutions for 11 months, and then actually, finally, standards will be adopted and approved by a delegated act. According to us and to our experts, it's impossible in this timeline, even in well-respected, with regard especially to the latest months and what is happening, to actually take into consideration, a proper, I would say, assessment, as the EC usually takes 8 months to analyze responses, and here in this case they will only have a little bit less than 1 month. At European Issuers, we have established an ESG committee, which is composed by associations, including Emisores Españoles, and other companies across Europe, in order to make sure that we provide the right advice, the right comments, and make sure that the outcome is something which is compatible for EU companies, but also taking into consideration the speed of development that is happening at international level as well. And this is almost the end of the presentation, just to give you, I know it's very technical, and maybe if you are not into it, you will see, but you can understand now why actually we are asking for some time in order to analyze probably what is coming next. Particularly, it will apply to, as you see, it will not only double the number of companies, but go even further than that. But here you can see that the information that is under consultation until the 8th of August takes into consideration, different aspects, not only the architecture, the implementation of the principles, also the contents. If there is a need to prioritize as well, do we need to go for everything at the same time? Do we need to prioritize what's the most important? Also the phased-in approach, when do we start? The adequacy of the disclosure requirements, and then also there are some corresponding sections that can be answered separately. So I invite, I would say, all the companies of emisores españoles, all Spanish companies actually, to start looking into it, provide comments. It's important. It's something they will have to do. They will have to comply with, and it's important that we can, as I indicate in the first of the presentation, raise the views of the business towards these important developments towards the institution. I'm happy to answer any question later on. Thank you very much for your attention.